Yannick Lefang. I'm the founder and CEO of Kasi Insight. Kasi is an award-winning market research and advisory company focusing on the African market.
Welcome to the African Tech Roundup, Yannick.
Thank you for having me.
Paris, 2017, the Afrobytes Tech Conference. You're loving the vibe.
I am absolutely loving the vibe. I mean, the people here are amazing. It's incredible what Africans from the diaspora and the continent are doing. And it's great to have this opportunity to meet and share our story, our challenges, but also our successes. And, you know, it's tremendous energy. And you can only be hopeful about the continent.
What's the key insight you can point to that surfaced in the time you've spent here so far, or who's someone you're really excited to meet and interact with, or do business with, in fact?
I think the key insight is that when I talk to entrepreneurs and from the continent, it's almost like there's this giant call. Everybody all of a sudden see or is on a mission. There's a sense of purpose that, you know, we have to do something. It's our time, it's our story, it's our way. And you've got people that are doing this in various different areas, media, data, consumer, e-commerce, and that are actually now acting and trying and learning. So, I mean, it's that sense that there's this big coalition with a purpose to make things happen on the continent. It's really exciting. And this is people on the continent and outside of the continent. So to have this fusion here in Paris is just amazing.
I don't immediately think tech when I think market research, or maybe I do in some respects, in terms of tools, maybe to execute on market research. Yes, sure, but I don't think of it as an inherently tech-rich field, or is it? What's trending in your scene?
I think market research, essentially is basically understanding, gathering data to understand the market. That's what market research is. And if you ask anybody in the room, they will tell you that if there's one place where data and research is not available, is in Africa. So I think what we are seeing now is...
Sorry, I'm going to hold you there. Like when you say isn't available, what kind of data, what kind of research? Just to flesh that out a bit.
Exactly. So if you look at data that's currently on the continent, you're mostly looking at GDP numbers, so macro data, GDP, FDI, and all that stuff. And even if you look at the quality of that data, there's a famous book by a Professor Morton who wrote How We Are Misled by African Statistics, where he basically challenged even GDP estimate by the IMF, the World Bank, based on the reliability of the data collection that they have. So even the data that we have today on the continent may not be reliable. So now when you look at macro data, whether it's consumer insight, consumer confidence, data from the bottom up, really, again, it's pretty much non-existent. Now, thanks to the internet, mobile penetration and whatnot, we're seeing now companies and solutions that are coming and trying to fill that gap. And it's important when you do market research to basically be able to collect data. And so that's why I'm saying, that field, it's in a very exciting place now because we're starting to see, players and solutions coming out and actually proven solutions that are showing results. And at the same time, what it creates is that for entrepreneurs and businesses is the realization that it is important to understand the African consumer because the African consumer is not the European consumer. It's not the US consumer. And until we simplify Africa, we're going to fail. And we've seen this with solutions that are African airborne, like M-Pesa, who didn't make it in South Africa, or like Nestle, who basically overestimated the size of middle class because they were overlooking the bottom numbers. So it is critical today to really get to the bottom up and understand Africa because it's 54 countries and it's very, very, very different dynamics when you look at East, West, French Africa, English Africa.
Give me a sense of who your clients might be and what your output for them within the context of supplying them market research give me a sense of what that's like.
Yeah, so a simple example, we did a project for Ghanaian entrepreneurs who was basically looking to start up an e-commerce website focusing on men in Ghana, and he was looking for a specific market: young, active, dynamic men, trendy, and basically came to us and said, "Okay, you know what? I have this business idea. This is what my market is going to be. So I'm preparing a pitch." A business plan, and I need some data. And then we said, okay, what is your market? He said, well, the e-commerce market in Africa is estimated to be a $50 billion market based on McKinsey estimate. If I take Ghana and I take the GDP and the population size, and then I do a modeling, I'm getting into a $1 billion market for Ghana. But because I'm looking at a specific niche market, I think I'm looking at $100 million in market. And then we said, okay, fine. So we took, we did a study for him, designed a survey, deployed a survey, looked at a sample of 1,000 respondents, and within 2 weeks we came up with a report that where we looked at the customer journey for his product on his website. And what we found out at the end was that on the report, at the end, we basically estimated his market to be 10 times less than what he had in mind. And the reason being, when you open up an e-commerce website, like I always say, e-commerce is not a tech play, it's a logistic play. And when you look at the customer journey to the purchase, you're going to see that if you start with 100 users that are potentially your client, you're going to end up with 38 that actually have a smartphone where you can push your app. You're going to have another 24 basically that made a purchase. And as you go down the purchase journey, you realize that your sample is shrinking and shrinking. So your real market is usually overestimated when you don't have enough information and you don't have enough reliable data that is specific to your need. Again, you could have gone and looked at a random research online and whatnot. It's not as specific as looking or targeting data that is specific to your project, specific to your market. So these are the type of customers that we have. Obviously, we also work with market research company that leverage our data collection capability, where they basically say, we need to target 500 users in Kenya, and, we want them to have, this age group and whatnot, and then we basically provide them with a recruitment tool so that they can get these customers. So these are the type of customers that we have.
And what's the most suspect stat that's commonly peddled? You do the conference circuit quite a bit. You're invited to speak. You attend quite a few, and I'm sure you hear over and over and over certain things said. In describing the opportunities, the addressable market of various markets or business opportunities. Yeah, what's the most suspect? Perhaps one you've even researched and debunked, or perhaps one you keep hearing and just think, based on my experience or what I've done before, this just doesn't feel right.
I'll go back to the e-commerce because everybody's big on e-commerce in Africa, and you look at the numbers, and then $50 billion, it's huge. Or you look at the B2B or the C2C estimate, the consumer market. I think McKinsey is saying it's between 1.3 and the latest one is $5.6 trillion now.
And so what are they not taking into account in your thinking?
I think it's very difficult to understand even how they come up with these numbers, because let's take the e-commerce one. When you look at a $50 billion market, and then they estimate that in Nigeria, for example, it's biggest one of the biggest economy, it's $12 billion US dollar. And then you think about mobile penetration, you think about internet penetration, you think about payments. When you think about all the different challenges that you have or you face today in Africa, to be able to make an e-commerce purchase, there is no way you can have a $12 billion market in Nigeria. Again, I'm saying this based on, maybe smaller research, but I'm saying this based on smaller samples that are representative of who your client is going to be. Not, a top-down number that are representative of some modeling and assumptions. But these are real people that are actually going to use. Even if you just take, because everything, the digital economy in Africa is based on the premises that mobile is going to change everything. But when you look at the mobile experience, it's not a perfect experience. If you take a mobile users between power issues, between data cost, between being the inability to basically download apps, between all these different challenges, the mobile experience is not the perfect experience. So just by saying we have 70% penetration on a continent, it does not by any means that if I push an e-commerce app, I'm going to get 70% of the people that are using my app. Or if I push any app by any means, I'm going to do it. The people like Facebook or Twitter or who have been successful in Africa have used different strategy, and people have to realize that when you buy a mobile phone in Africa, it comes with Facebook, right? Because they know 12%, less than 12% of the people actually download app. Downloading frequently, less than 7%. So they knew that going in, and then they said, we're going to partner with telcos so that when we sell phone, they're going to have our apps included in the phone. And that's where, you can get people to basically get on your app and use your app. So that's, what I think about, the continent and those estimates. So to me, high level, your market is most likely overestimated.
Why do you think we're not applying ourselves? And I include myself in this as a commentator in this scene. I very rarely apply the same rigor to interrogating statistics or big numbers. The same rigor I'd apply to, say, questioning intent and motive and impact and all that kind of stuff to numbers. And what do you attribute this to? Everyone's using this data to make these decisions. So why aren't we applying ourselves to making sure we're getting good, hearty data?
I think first because there's always been this concept that it's non-existent on the continent because our economies are informal, we don't have infrastructures, and it's true. It's been very difficult to collect information on the continent for those reasons. So
wait. I mean, surely not, though. I mean, I live in South Africa. I'm Zimbabwean. And I've had a fair exposure to the most inconvenient settings in terms of what a data gatherer might have to encounter in sort of extracting data. I've also been exposed to, quite frankly, the most ideal, environment in the market research field. I'm trying to understand what's the difficulty here, because I mean, a lot of those things are non-issues at this point, I feel. Am I wrong?
Well, I think you have to realize, okay, what is the state of research today, or how do people do research? So if you go to Africa, the way people do research, basically, it's mostly face-to-face, where, you get people on the street, they ask questions, and then they fill paper, and then they go back, they do data entry and all that stuff. So that whole process takes a lot of time. It's prone to error, and it's prone to fraud. So basically, you have, that has been the way people will, and definitely not affordable for a small entrepreneur or small size businesses, because it would take a lot of time and a lot of money to basically complete it. So what has happened is with the internet and whatnot, I think now we're seeing solutions that allow you to basically get that information, that insight faster and cheaper. So now you get people that may have said in the past that, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. And I'm going to ask, my friends, my family, if they think it's a good idea, then it's probably a good idea. Or I'm not, because I'm in Africa. Like I saw this. So we did a paper on how to build mobile apps that are relevant to the African consumer. And the reason why we did that paper was because there was an article in Nairobi by a mobile app developer in Nairobi. He was basically complaining that he built an app and nobody from Kenya was downloading the app. He's like, I'm sitting here in Nairobi and I think I know people, or I think I know what they want. But here I am. I have this app and nobody's using it. In fact, my few downloads are coming from Asia and Europe. So what is going on? Right? So that tells you that, it doesn't have you. We in the past had a tendency to assume that because we are in the market, we understand the market. So we don't need necessarily to have that information. But I think as people get into businesses and they get into bigger businesses, scalable businesses, they will realize how important data is, because going into a Kenyan market is different than going into a Ghanaian or a Cameroonian market. And now that, and part of it is our job now to tell people that, yes, it is available. Yes, you can have it in 2 weeks. Yes, you can have insight where you can make decisions. And yes, it's going to save you money in the long run, because the other piece is, I always get, entrepreneurs saying to me, well, you know what, I'm just going to question people on Facebook or social media, and then that should be enough. So market research, the process of market research includes, asking questions. Asking questions is not as easy as just showing up and asking questions. There's a lot of work that goes into asking the proper question to get the insight that you need. So that has value, because at the end, the decisions that you make are going to be critical. So I give you one example where, a guy from Tanzania wanted to build a mobile app for his platform, and we did research for him and basically told him all you need is the equivalent of a 1-800 number or an SMS code. And then he said, well, no, I think I need an app. He said, no, you don't need an app. And then we said, here we are saving you $15,000. And we're telling you this way, which is a cheaper way, is actually the best way for you to get your customer quicker. By the time you're done building your app, somebody who's using this route would have at least 100 customers. By the time you're finishing your app and actually trying to push it. So these are the things that market research will tell you, or these entrepreneurs that are discovering new opportunities by getting the data. So a guy says, I want to sell, potatoes and banana. But when you design your survey for him, you say, well, if you want to sell these items, you need to add this. And then you realize that actually a lot of the people are actually eating one item or shopping for one item that he didn't think about. So all of a sudden, your inventory and all that stuff is becoming totally different. And that's the other thing about, market research is that you're not just using market research to confirm an idea. You're also using market research to discover opportunities, right? Gaps in the market. And sometimes that would lead you to another business, which is fine. Because at the end of the day, you want to deliver value. You don't want to prove yourself that you're right. What you want to do is you want to build a business that delivers value for people.
I've been that entrepreneur. I just wanted to be right.
And again, it's the same for me, even being in the market research field, where you want to be right at market research is important. But again, you have to adapt. Even for us, we have to adapt to, the type of customers and the type of needs that they have, and basically stay or try to be focused into what we're doing.
Absolutely. So what do you make of the tech plays we're starting to see in the market research field? South Africa's got Delve.io. I know there are many others, but top of mind is Delve in South Africa and perhaps M-Surveys in Kenya. So do you see these as disruptors to your business, or are these tools that enhance your value proposition in some way? I think
they are, part of the ecosystem. I think the market is big enough for these players, to be honest. One of the difference between, let's say, them and us is that we are an integrated market research firm. So we basically have a data collection piece, analysis, and then reporting and insight. And M-Survey, for example, they focus on data collection. That's doing it on mobile. So what we want to be really is really be a consumer insight engine from end to end, where we basically have a data collection, an analysis, and insight.
QWPP coming to buy you?
Well, I think in the long-term future, maybe.
So an exit is something you might be open to as well?
I think for us now, the mission is really, what I'm really excited about is now we have the ability to level the playing field. I think data is going to be a key factor in leveling the playing field for local entrepreneurs. My dream is to help local African or diaspora entrepreneur build regional champions. When I work with an entrepreneur from the continent, I always tell him, I want you to think about your idea, not only as a home idea, I'm going back home to build something. I want you to think about it as an African idea. You're going to go back and you're going to start home, but you're not going to finish home. And today you have data and insight that would allow you to navigate these markets with information where now you can mitigate your risk, you can better target your customers, you can better address your product, and you can basically turn into a giant a player in the market. Because for me, I think one of the things that we're seeing on the continent is that because there's the opportunity and the demographic growth and all that stuff, we have all these multinational coming into the continent. But really, who should be part of the African story? Who should be the first beneficiary of the African rise? It's the African. Like, we have to be the first beneficiary. So I think our vision really, beside exit, is really to be here in 5 years and saying we are working with these companies that are founded, managed, even financed by Africans, and that are now going into East Africa, West Africa, and all that stuff. And we're providing them with, like I said, Fortune 500 insight, advice. That's what we want to do. We my partners and I always says, when you get research from us, we want you to feel like you get the latest iPhone. That's exactly. Or we want you to feel like you're now sitting in a giant board, like a Fortune 500 guy who now is going to have this information. And that's going to be competitive advantage. That's going to be key for him to navigate and go to this market and that market. That's our dream. And if it implies an exit at some point, maybe, but I think we are in for Africa. We think we can grow with Africa. We think there's tremendous market in Africa, but we'll see what the future holds.
To one day look back on perhaps a unicorn of the future and point back to insights that you delivered to help get them there. I suppose that's a feeling that might be hard to beat, and I hope you more than 1 or 2 or 3 times get to feel that.
Yes, absolutely, and to me, it's the nirvana beyond the having a successful business and whatnot. And these are usually not the most lucrative clients that we have, but they're the most exciting clients to work with. Working with diaspora entrepreneurs and these guys, because.
And what's your footprint in terms of your business?
So we are based in Toronto, Canada. We have an office in Nairobi, and then we're covering Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and Tanzania. So basically, the way we work is all our data analysis and insight reporting is done in Canada. And then data collections and all that stuff, we're focusing on the continent, and so that's basically how we work. Now we stopped our expansion for now, but then the idea is that we want to hit 20, 30 countries pretty quickly, and really cover most of the ground. And what we are also doing is we're building on top of our data collection capability. We're building data products. So we launched a consumer confidence index last June, which is the first monthly consumer confidence index in Africa, where you can track confidence now on the continent. Because one of the core when it comes to consumer insight is what we call the 360 view, where we have one pillar is confidence, the other pillar is consumptions, the third one is health, and then the last one is finance. Everything starts with confidence. When people are confident in the economy and everything, they spend. And when they spend, so we track consumers, consumptions in different tech, fashion, and we also track health because, if you want to grow you need a healthy, population. So we have an index that's tracking health and wellness. And then obviously finance, which is another great area where, fintech will come into play. But the way we look at, like I was saying in my workshop, fintech is disrupting banking in the West, but fintech in Africa is creating banking. So when you think about fintech in Africa as creating banking, your value proposition is different. What you're selling is financial freedom. Selling, and you have to think about it that way. When you think about it that way, your ecosystem becomes huge. Now, because you have cash management, you have wealth management, you have literacy, financial literacy, you have all these. So it goes beyond payments and transfer and, everything that everybody focuses on. When, really you're creating a new ecosystem, and then it's really financial freedom and all that comes with it. So these are the 4 pillars really that give us a 360 on the consumer.
And you mentioned that you sort of decided to halt your growth plans for now. Like, what goes into a decision like that?
So I think it was a couple of things. One thing was expense. 'Cause it's expensive to expand. The second thing was that we needed to allocate more time to marketing and client acquisition, because now we feel that we have the main ones, which are the two big ones, and then East Africa, West Africa, 2 French countries. So we cover the bases, and we feel that now we will grow based on demand. So if you have a client who says, we want to go to Senegal, we can turn around, we can set it up in a month and a half. But it has to make economic sense for us, because one of the things with us is once we start collecting, we don't stop. We do constant collecting, right? Because we produce, again, indexes that basically track. And so it has to make economic sense for us to do that. So for now, we said, okay, with what we have, the footprint we have, I think it's enough to cover a lot of the demand, most of the demand, on the continent.
And also, I mean, you've got nothing to prove at this point where for those people who value or who have size or footprint as a sort of calling card or a center or as a signal as to your competency or your ability to deliver, you kind of done that.
And that's why we spend a lot of time working on that process and making sure we can scale it and making sure we can test it. We didn't test it just in one country. We tested in 6-7 countries. So now we're pretty comfortable in our ability to expand and ability to deliver, again, because we do it constantly, and our ability to manage our clients. So now, let's say we want to focus 80% of our time on marketing, customer acquisitions, getting business, and shipping stuff.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. That's been a very insightful a few minutes, and all the best with your business. Absolute pleasure meeting you here at Afrobytes Tech Conference 2017.
Thank you so much for having me, and congrats again on your podcast and your enterprise. It's a movement, and it's a coalition. We must connect, keep that energy, and drive our continent ahead.
And get it done, man.
Get it done, please.
Yeah, man. All right, take it easy.
Thanks.